Hello, good morning. I have a pencil and a sketchbook. So let's do what people do who have a pencil and a sketchbook in their midst, and let's get to drawing. My only plan while I'm drawing today is to draw people. I struggle with people, with drawing a whole body. So that's what I'm starting with first, is just to get my groove going and start with the shape of a body. I have a little bit of confidence in how I want the overall body to look. I know I want it to be a female, and I want her lines to be very flowy. Just very carefree, very almost innocent and young. I kind of know how I want the upper body to look, but I don't know at all how I want the lower body. So I decide to just kind of draw whatever my pencil leads me to draw, and I end up drawing these ballet legs. And it's just not as flowy as I was expecting. So I erase it and I'm going to start over, and instead of focusing on the really difficult legs that were giving me a tough time, I move on to the arms because I kind of know more how I want the arms to look. And now I can kind of see the arms are leading me into a different direction with the legs. And I decide that I want one leg to go straight down, more to the side facing the way that her torso is facing this time, so her body is just kind of like making more sense and not all twisty. But then this other leg is going to show the freedom that she's feeling as she's dancing. So this leg is out, extended, and just very carefree. The way that I've been drawing faces lately is just to get like a very rough sketch of the face down, kind of in the place that I want them. And then I intentionally move on to something else so that I can look back at the face later with fresh eyes and notice if there's anything wrong or needs to be moved at all. Now, to go along with the carefree pose, I imagine her to be wearing some kind of like a really flowy dress that, like, as she's spinning, her dress just flies out. And I'm trying to capture that. I've very little experience drawing fabric and like the flow of fabric, so I'm a little bit apprehensive to start this, what is to me a challenge, but I'm going for it and we'll see how it goes. Do you ever have this really huge task that you need to complete and it's just so overwhelming and you don't want to do it, so you do everything else in the whole world that you could possibly do that does not matter, just so you can avoid doing that one thing that needs to be accomplished? That's what I'm doing now, and because I really don't want to fix that head, but I know I need to. And now that I have exhausted all other avenues of avoidance, I finally have to come to terms with it, and let's draw a new head. The reason why I was struggling with the idea of fixing this head is because I could not decide how I wanted the head to look, and I know that in the past I have really struggled with making the head and the body connect in a way that makes sense. Either the neck is too long or the neck is too short and I don't give them shoulders that make sense. So there is my reason why something so silly, so small, was such a big deal to me, because I have tried in the past and I have never gotten it to make sense. As I draw this back arm, I'm feeling the vibe that I want it to match the leg that's sticking out, because I think that's going to offer more of the carefree and like she's galloping in a field of flowers or something and just does not have any worldly problems. And it's right about here that I realize that her body is pretty much how I envision her, and that it all comes down to decorating the dress now. And of course, I am avoiding that by moving on to something that does not matter yet again, the feet. Although when I'm moving away from the dress at this point, it's because there's something wrong with it that I haven't put my finger on, and then I realize I want it to flow more. It was a very stagnant dress before, but I would like it to have more movement. Pull up a reference photo of a flowy dress just to get some ideas for what a flowy dress looks like when it's flowing. So I found out that they have these little ins and outs and lines that go up and down, and I try to apply that to this here. And I really like how it's turning out. It looks like a flowy dress like I was imagining. Fancy that! And now that I'm happy with the dress, I decide to add some shading here and there and just solidify that I like it. And also to feel out the rest of the dress and see if what I did draw in the past makes sense. And I change up a couple things like the neckline, and I get rid of that sash thing that was in the middle. I add some more shading and feel it out some more, and I decide to give like this scrunchy part right in the middle of the top of the dress, and I realize after doing that I need to reshape the chest. And once I do that, everything just makes sense, even more. So I'm feeling confident since I found that error, and I decide to keep on decorating and just going with whatever my heart decides. I add some little ruffles down here to kind of match the sleeves. I don't know if it really came across that way, but that was my intention. And then I finish out this little diamond in the abdomen thing just to play with just leading with my pencil here. And then I draw this line that goes back, and I realize that it could be like, that could be the design instead of the diamond. And I really like how that turns out. So I erase the diamond, keep the line, and look at this. It's a finished dress now. How pretty is that? Let's move on to something else here. I'll prepare my sketchbook, get rid of any smudges, check my pinky to make sure I don't have any smudges, and then I'll start on what I imagine this girl's face to look like up close. I do pull up a reference from Pinterest here, and so that's what I'm looking at as I draw this. And the way that I really like to map out the head is by starting with the overall shape of the head and then doing the outline of the face. And then from there, it's almost like if I unfocus my eyes, I can see where the eyes should belong on the face. And I don't always get it right. I'm not trying to be super exact here, otherwise I would measure it. I more just want to use the girl that I'm looking at in the reference photo as like a guide. And then as I get her down on the paper, if there's anything that I want to change to make her match the dancing girl on the left, then I'm giving myself the freedom to do that. The one thing that I did really like about this girl on the reference is her nose. So I made sure to keep the nose pretty exact, or as exact as I could get it, and then everything else I was pretty loose with. And now that I have the face pretty much mapped out how I want it, I start to work on the hair and also darkening up some lines around the face to start adding that dimension. As I'm drawing this hair, the dancing girl's leg is cutting off the hair exactly where the hair should end. So instead of there being a tangent there, I decide to just let that side of the hair be a little bit longer. Looking back, I probably should also make the other side of the hair longer. I don't know why I didn't. It's always exciting when you add the pupils in the right spot. Instead of having either really, really huge pupils or the eyes just looking in two totally opposite directions. So now that the eyes are looking in the right way, I can start to darken up and give her a little bit of shading. And I love doing that. That's my favorite thing in the whole world, is to add shading. As I do the hair, I decide to thicken up only some of the lines, like the more important lines, and I really like how it turned out. It looks minimalistic but still has a really cool effect to it. And then this is my absolute favorite part in the whole world, like I already said, the shading. Alright, so now that we know who the girl looks like, she's starting to give me the vibe of a girl who just really enjoys a good flower. But she doesn't seem like somebody who likes just the regular flowers like a daisy or a rose. No, this girl likes a lavender flower. That is her favorite thing. I pull up a reference of a lavender, and of course it would not make sense if it was straight up and down on the page, so I turn my book sideways and I go to town. So the very first thing, if you noticed, was I turned my book sideways because I really like to switch up the interest of what you're looking at. So it would be cool also to just have a lavender straight up and down. No, not as cool. Have a lavender laying on its side, and that's way cooler. So lavender laying on its side it is. So I map out the shape of the lavender buds, and then I do like a very rough lines of where all the leaves on the lavender plant should go and how long I want them to be. And I decide to start with the easiest thing, with the leaves, of course. And then I work up to the hardest thing, which is the very intimidating petals of a lavender plant. What do you call it? A flower? A lavender? In any case, I digress. Let's get back to this lavender sample, shall we? So the very bottom layer of the lavender is all just circular buds. And it's not until about a little less than halfway up the plant that the flowers start to bloom, and then at the very tip of the plant is more buds that have not bloomed yet. How interesting! So as I have been studying this one reference photo, I've noticed that lavender flowers grow in rows up the stalk. So it starts at the bottom in the bud stage, and then each layer, all of the flowers are more bloomed as you go up each layer. And then at the very tip, like I said, it's more circles again, not bloomed flowers. So that's how I'm handling this. And it's actually starting to look like lavender. I'm so excited about this. So I take my pencil and start to add some shading just so I can kind of get the feeling for if when it is complete, if I am going in the right direction with how I'm handling these rows, or if I need to adjust and start drawing them in a different way. But as I'm drawing these shading and these darker lines on the bottom of each of the flowers, I really like it. So I continue, I go up the flowers, I start to add more of the open blooms up near the top. And now that I'm near the very top where the blooms are not bloomed anymore and they're just the bud looking things, I'm going back to how I did at the very bottom and just add more oval shapes in like a cone pattern. Lavender. And voila! So lavender's done, and now we have kind of like a profile of what this girl is starting to be about. So she is carefree, she likes to dance, and she looks like that. Look at the face. And she likes lavender flowers. Kind of an obscure flower to be your favorite flower, So she's like an obscure girl and likes different kinds of things. So as I feel out what else this girl might be into, I decide to color up her dress, and I decide that no other color would go as well as yellow. It's the most carefree color, in my opinion, and it goes really well with purple being the opposite of the color wheel. So I add purple to the top of her dress and yellow to the bottom, and it looks beautiful. I try to add these purple little details to the end of the dress, and the purple kind of gets eaten by the yellow and it just turns gray. But I'm not really bothered by it, so I continue. I do the same thing with the sleeve on the top, and I realized that she needs a skin color, so I start to clear off the page, and oh my goodness, I smudged up this lavender so bad. So let's clean that up. I'll come back in later and add some more detail back into that lavender. I'll add my trusty little page protector thing here and hope that I don't smudge anything any further. Hey, so remember when I said that I have trouble connecting the head and the body? Just remember that right now, because you're gonna see just how much trouble I actually have with it. As I was coloring up that last drawing, I had the distinct feeling, the distinct impression that she loves lemonade. Probably like a lavender lemonade. So I take out my purple lavender colored pencil and I start to give her her favorite drink, lavender lemonade. Now, I'm not really sure how I would convey the lavender part of a lavender lemonade, so I'm pretty much just using purple as the lavender part for the line art, and then I will go and probably just do this as a regular lemonade yellow. As I'm using the marker over these colored pencils, the purple is starting to mix with the yellow in a way that I don't really want right now, so as I color over the lines, I'm trying to avoid the lines as best I can so that the colors don't mesh into that pinky red color. And then I get a very dark yellow and I start to add a little bit more dimension to the ice cubes and then the very bottom corner of this drink. And as I'm doing this, I start to realize that the level of the lemonade is not consistent all the way around the cup. So I go back in and I add the lemonade going around appropriately. And I feel great about how the color looks. But I want to add a little bit more touch of purple, so I'm going and darkening up just some spots with the purple around the lemonade. I'm starting to feel the itch again of drawing another person. So I want to challenge myself and draw the big face, but in a different position. So I want to try to draw like the 3/4 perspective and looking slightly down, and we'll see how it goes. The two things that stick out to me the most about this girl are her nose and her eyebrows, so I wanted to make sure to get both of those features pretty similar. And then everything else, I just kind of played it by ear to see how I could run with it, if I could get the cheekbones protruding in what might be the same way, and making sure that her hair is about the same length and flowy and super cool looking. I started to work on this ear and the hair around the ear, and it just was not making sense no matter how hard I tried, so I just erased it and got rid of it. Now she has no ear. She started to feel like a floating head, so I was trying to figure out how I could make her body position, and for some reason I decided to put her hand by her face. I don't really know how her hand by her face really makes sense, but I had the idea and I wanted to stick with it and push myself and see if I could make it make sense. And so I tried all these different hand positions, and I finally got to one that kind of looked right, but then I decided, why is her hand by her face in the first place? So I think really, really hard about if I want to erase this hand, and I decide to try to erase it, and it won't erase. I burnished the page too hard. I redrew it and redrew it and redrew it too many times, so now I have to keep the hand. And it is what it is, because we all have hands. What's so weird about a hand in the first place, right? So I have this spot in the top corner of my sketchbook, and I want to draw something big. I want to draw something purple. So I'm focusing on the big part right now. I'm drawing huge eyes. I love to draw huge eyes. I think they're really fun and a really cool way to balance out a sketchbook. And for these eyes, instead of looking straight at us, I decide to have her look off to the side just to switch it up a little bit. And of course, going along with the same theme, this is the same girl, or I'm at least trying to keep her consistent with the other girls here. And she's got to have those signature eyebrows and the signature nose. So those are my two goals here. But then I also have to keep in mind my purple theme that I wanted to go for too. And why not give her really big glasses, and her glasses will be the purple thing. Easy, done, let's do it. I also thought it might be really interesting to give her gauges this time and switch up, add a different element to her personality that she didn't have before. And I think it added a really cool aspect to this spread. And now that I'm almost done with the face, it's time to add the lavender. I was going to be finished with this spread after the lavender glasses, but as I was looking down across the page, it looked like the yellow was unbalanced. So I decided to add yellow to this girl's shirt here just to bring the yellow to this side of the page. And to add a little bit of variety to the yellow compared to the other yellows, I added orange to the shading. I like the dimension that it gives the page. I think it looks really cool. This spread is done, so I hope you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun to figure out who this girl is. If you have a name for her, leave it in the comments. It'd be really fun to know who you think this girl is and what else you would add to this page. Thanks for coming with me while we drew this girl together, and I'll see you next week. Bye!